All right, so this one is the second problem. There's a lot of different ways to solve this, so I'm going to show you at least a couple of ways, and then you can decide which way you like it better if you had trouble solving this on your own. Okay, so one way is like they showed you in the video, where you convert it into a decimal, and then you can compare the prices. So that's one way I'll show you, and then the other way is to do part whole percent over 100, which is the way that we did earlier on in the year, if you remember how to do that. So first, doing part over whole is equal to percent over 100. I don't know if that sounds familiar. So if we do that for TA, the part is the unknown. That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to put X over the whole, and the whole amount would be the 500 shoppers. Is equal to percent is whatever's given to us, which is our 44, and over 100. Remember, 100 always goes in the same spot. So that's for TA. And then TB, we're going to set it up so that we can kind of solve them and then compare right away. So it's going to look the same almost. Our unknown is still our part over 500, except the percent for TB would be 26%. So 26 is going to go here, and 100 is going to go there. So now here's A, here's B, and then we can solve for those missing pieces. So this is where you find a relationship or you do cross products. So right away I see a relationship between 100 and 500. So if I'm going this way, from 100 to get to 500, I know I could just multiply this whole fraction times 5. Because 100 times 5 is 500. So that means if I do that, I have to do the same thing to the top. So if I do 44 times 5, I'm going to get X. So 44 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 plus 2 is 22. So for A is 220. So I'm going to put TA. Okay, so for TB, same thing. You can find a relationship this way, but there's a nice one going this way again. 100 times 5 is 500. So you do 26 times 5. So I'm going to do my work right underneath. So 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 3 is 130. So X is equal to 130, and this is TB. And since it's asking about how many more chose TA than TB, the last step would be to subtract. So you take your 220 and minus your 130. So this would be 0, and you have to borrow. That becomes 12. 12 minus 3 is 9. So 90 is your answer. Now, if you want to see it the other way, I'll go ahead and show you right now. If you checked your answer and you're good and you understand this way, great, go on to the next slide. But if you want to see the other way that changing the percent into a decimal, then just keep watching. Okay. All right, so now if we've solved for changing it into a decimal, if you do TA and you change your 44% into a decimal, 44%, it gets moved 2 times to the left, so this is just 0.44. So all you do is take your decimal and you just multiply it by your 500. So 500 times 0.44. I'm not lining up decimals, I'm just going to multiply like I would normally multiply, even though there's a decimal there. Okay? So I'm going to hold off on that just for a second so I can get TB ready to go. So TB is 26%. Change that into a decimal. Take that percent, move it 2 times, which is 26 hundredths. Then you're going to take your 500 and multiply it by your 26 hundredths. And then that will be the amount of people who chose TB. And then you're going to solve it the same way where you subtract. Okay, so the math, we're going to do the math for it real quick. So 4 times 0 is 0, 0, and then 4 times 5 is 20. So I already multiplied that first number, and then you do it again. So you're going to have the same exact number there. So I'm just going to repeat it. And then you add 0, 0, 0, 2, 2, and then there's 1, 2 numbers behind your decimal. So the decimal gets bumped over 2 times. And this should be the exact same answer that we got down here, which it is. Even though there's a 0.00, it's the same number. Okay, so that means we should get 130 as our answer when we multiply this out. So 6 times 0, 6 times 0, 6 times 5 is 30. Then you do times 2. So 2 times 0, actually 0 is my, because we already did 6. Then you should have 2 zeros, and then 2 times 5 is 10. So hopefully we get the same thing. So 0, 0, 0, 3, 1. Then you just remember you have 2 numbers behind your decimal. It goes 1, 2. And let's compare to if we get the same thing. Yep. And then you would subtract your 220 minus your 130 to get your 90. Okay, so that's 2 different ways. Hopefully you get the same answer as I did. Go ahead and go to the next slide and start filling in that practice. Good luck.